We are live from the Buttonwood Park Zoo in New Bedford, Massachusetts. Time for another one of our virtual keeper chats. Hi to Keaton, Tegan, hi Kaiden. It looks like we got a bunch of people that have jumped on. My Wi-Fi looks like it's a little intermittent, so I'm hoping that once I kind of hone in on who our guest is for today, it will stay steady for you. Good morning, Diana. So without further ado, we are outside today because it's a gorgeous sunny day today, and I am here with Sam and another one of our animal ambassadors. And so I'm going to take the camera right over to Sam with who we're going to be talking about today and see if my Wi-Fi stays going. So Sam, go ahead and take it away.
All right, good morning. Our meeting today is Dottie, and Dottie here is a red-footed tortoise. And these guys, particularly they like kind of like the foresty edges of like the rainforests and savannas, but they don't really go into the drier areas of those savannas. But they're also, so these guys, humidity, so their skin stays nice and moist. Now red-footed tortoises, although she doesn't look like it, kind of come in some different colors. There are some regional differences, some from the tip of Argentina, but not found all throughout that area. Their range is kind of intermittent and kind of spaced around within that. So based on where they are in that location, the coloration might be a little bit different. So some red-footed tortoises might actually be a little bit more red. They might have more yellow, more speckling on them, and their shells might be a little bit darker or lighter. So tortoises are, for the most part, herbivorous, so they're going to eat a lot of leafy greens that they find on the ground. So leafy greens don't really give them a lot of nutrition, so they're going to spend a lot of their day foraging for those greens. But they will occasionally eat some rainforest fruits like pineapple or mangoes or bananas and things like that. That's going to comprise about 15% of their diet or so.
She is on the move, and we have a bunch of questions. She does like to go.
Occasionally these guys, they do like a source of protein, so they will occasionally eat some carrion, which just means some dead things, or they might eat some small insects or some small rodents.
So Kaiden, age 9, is already asking, what's the difference between a turtle and a tortoise?
That's a great question. So tortoises are technically turtles. They fall into the group of testudines, but tortoises are going to be more terrestrial animals, whereas turtles are going to be either aquatic or semi-aquatic. So if you ever look at a turtle's anatomy, they tend to have more webbed feet and toes so they can get around in the water, whereas like our sea turtles, they actually have flippers to swim. But if you look at Dottie, or if you look at tortoises, they really don't have those fingers. She has 4 claws on her front feet, but she's got those flat back feet, and her front limbs are pretty round. And so these guys are much more suited to walking around on the land. So again, tortoises are going to be more terrestrial, whereas turtles are going to be aquatic or semi-aquatic.
A lot of people shouting out good morning to everybody that's joining us.
For those of you just joining in, this is Dottie. She's a red-footed tortoise. Even though she doesn't look very red, she's a lot more orange and yellow. Some other tortoises do have more red on them. It's just every species is different, or every animal is different on their colors, just like how you and I have different skin tones and different hair colors as well. Everyone's going to be a little bit more different.
So Tegan is asking, does she have a favorite keeper?
I don't think she does. I think she just enjoys whoever feeds her. So she's very food motivated. Again, tortoises spend a lot of their days just foraging for foods. Their range, where their sort of territory, quote unquote, can be about 100 or so acres wide. But these guys aren't really territorial, where a tortoise has its own range and they're going to scare other where they go. Nice. When these guys move, they don't move in like a zigzag. They kind of move in like a spider web pattern, where they're going to go sort of diagonals all over the place.
So Silas, age 9, wants to know, do the rings on their shell mean anything?
Their rings don't mean anything. So Dottie here was taken in from someone's house. And so on top of her shell, you might notice this with a lot of captive tortoises, where they have their raised scutes, or those bony things on their shell. And this is a condition called pyramiding. And again, so a lot of captive tortoises have this, where they either weren't getting the right nutrition, or the right humidity wasn't good enough. And this is really common, especially when they're growing up their first year or so. So because we didn't have Dottie when she first hatched, probably where she was when she was first hatched from another owner, they didn't take good care of her, so it caused these sort of bony protrusions to come out. But tortoises, if they're well maintained, they're going to have a very smooth shell.
So we have a couple of questions from Kaiden and also Trinity and Tegan, all asking do they go into the water at all, and if they're in the water, can they swim?
These guys are not good swimmers, so I recommend if you do find a tortoise, do not put it in deep water, because again, they're very, very heavy and they're just gonna sink. But these guys do like to go in the water, some shallow water, just so they can soak. They will absorb some water, that way they can get a nice drink.
What is she eating right now?
She is currently eating a banana. So a banana is one of their fruits that they eat. It's one of their natural fruits because they are found in the rainforests. And again, they are going to eat more tropical fruits like bananas and mangoes and other things like that. But most of their diet is going to be leafy greens.
And does she have a favorite?
I would say that her favorite is probably banana or grapes, probably because they're a little bit more sweet.
Serenity Love Age 8 is asking, this is an interesting question, do they have a skeletal system?
They do. So their shell...
I'm going to pan away from her 1 second, just so we have like a little visitor. This is actually a black vulture. This is a wild out. He's pretty bold. So I just caught sight of him. But anyway, back to the tortoise.
Yeah, so they are skeleton. They have an internal skeleton. So they're limb skeletons. They have a skull and everything else. And then their shell is actually a part of their skeleton. So kind of like on the cartoons when you see turtles and tortoises, they can take their shell off, kind of like some clothes. Their shell is attached to their body. And I believe their shell actually comes from one of their ribs. When they're developing in the egg, it starts to overgrow and then form around their body.
What else are you going to give her? More banana?
Yeah, so she loves bananas, just the way she'll her. So again, tortoises spend a lot of their day foraging, so that's what she is doing. They'll travel a long period of time, typically about one straight line, but they're not going to move very, very fast. So tortoises, kind of like their name suggests, so a lot of turtles, they don't move. These guys move about 109 yards per hour, which comes to less than half a mile per hour.
Yep, I'm following. Clay is saying that the top of the shell is called the carapace.
Right, so we have the carapace on top, and then we have the plastron, which is on the bottom. So
can you tell these guys apart, the males and females? Do they look different?
Yeah, you can tell the males and females apart. I believe, so underneath, I'll pick her up, but I'm not going to turn her upside down, so you can see kind of where her tail is, if Cher can get a good look.
Yep.
You can see that Dottie's, by her tail, is a lot more oval shaped, whereas the male's, it's going to be a more open shape. And that's just so the tortoises can mate.
And so these guys are egg layers.
Yep, they are egg layers, but they don't take care of their young. So a single female is going to lay between 2 and 7 eggs, sometimes a max of about 15. She'll lay one every couple of hours, I believe. So she'll find sort of a nice depression. She'll use her claws in the back to dig a hole in the ground. She'll lay her eggs, cover it with leaf litter, and then she's going to leave those eggs. She's not going to take care of them. So those eggs are going to sit in the nest for about 5 months. And like a lot of reptiles, depending on those animals, so hatch before they're completely out on their own.
And Kaiden, age 9, is wondering how old she is.
We're not totally sure how old Dottie is. Again, she was house, so since we weren't there when she hatched, we don't know how old she is. She's been with the zoo for about 4.5 years or so. but that's all we can give. So she's at least 5 years old, but in human care, these guys can live to be over 50.
So Sage, age 6, I don't know if you know the answer to this, is asking, where does the name Tortoise come from?
Oh, that's a great question that I unfortunately do not know the answer.
Yeah, I don't either. So that's one we're going to have to look up. We'll get the answer to that and post it later. Oh, she's got a whole bunch of stuff there. So is that lettuce?
Most of the time we give her just lettuce or those leafy greens for her diets, because that's what she's going to eat in the wild. And then 3 times a week we'll give her some fruit and some veggies just to sort of supplement it and give her some extra nutrients and things like that.
You get a good look at her eating.
Yeah, and we will also give her a little bit of dog food just for extra protein, because again, in the wild these guys are going to seek out protein by eating carrion or small rodents or invertebrates and things like that.
So Lori is asking, can they fight off other animals?
They cannot fight, so their main defense is going to be their shells. And in the South American jungles, their main predator is going to be a jaguar. And jaguars, they're actually used to pry the shells apart. But a lot of tortoises, because they're usually sort of hunkered down in one spot, so the jaguar can't pull them.
All right, so I'm getting a lot of word glitching a lot, which means my Wi-Fi is going in and out. Sam, do you have your phone on you that you could do a personal hotspot and maybe see if we can keep it from glitching? She's definitely on the move. She wants to move. And I really want to move with her so you folks can see. And she's going to check out the black vulture, who's really, really taking an interest in us. But I'm going to follow our girl here. Okay, with that. I can't believe she's hanging out with us. I'm going to like pan her. And then...
Yeah, so what else do we want to know about tortoises?
Let's see.
Yeah, so these guys do kind of share ranges. Footed tortoise. We do have some yellow-footeds here at the zoo. Occasionally in the wild they might hybridize, but I think it's very, very rare. Typically, if that does happen, you don't really see a combination of the two traits between the red-footed and the yellow-footed tortoise. Yellow-footed tortoises are within the same genus. They share a lot of the same genome where those they can produce offspring. But again, in the wild it typically doesn't happen. They typically don't want to hybridize their tortoises. But they do kind of come. The regional differences are going to change within how much orange or yellow they have. Occasionally you might get a red-footed tortoise with much more of a brown shell instead of this charcoal black shell as well.
And Diane is saying they're very colorful, and they are. They have that red sort of coloring on their feet.
They got that red, they've got that yellow, and that orange as well.
Are turtles and tortoises related? Sage, age 6, is wondering.
Yeah, they are related. So they fall within the same order of testudines, whereas tortoises are turtles, so they kind of fall into that group as well. So at one point they sort of get a lot more terrestrial, whereas the turtles stayed, again, semi-aquatic or aquatic.
Adrian wants to know what her name is.
This is Dottie. My guess is that she was named for all these dots on top of her. Kind of looks like polka dots on her. And these dots, my guess is that they mimic the sunlight that filters through the canopy of the rainforest. And that black shell kind of helps her blend in.
Do they make any sounds?
They'll make some grunting or some clucking sounds when they're going to mate. So their mating display is kind of weird. So when a tortoise sees another tortoise that they want to mate with, they might first examine the colors, make sure it's the right species, and then they'll do sort of some head swaying or some head bobbing. And if the female's interested, she'll come over, and the male will make sort of those clucking or those other sounds. But in general, they're not going to make it towards predators or things like that. It's mainly just to communicate with other turtles, or tortoises, excuse me.
Just scrolling through to see if I've missed questions here. I know it was a little disjointed because we were breaking up. It seems like it's leveled out a little bit. And I think so far we've answered a bunch of the questions. So, what other animals would you find living near them?
You would find ring-tailed coatis, which are relatives to raccoons. You'd find tegu lizards. Again, they're going to be found in the rainforest, so you'd find some primates, so some monkeys. You might find some opossums and falcons and things like that.
So Tegan is asking, does she have a mate at all? And how do these guys live in the wild? Are they solitary?
She does not have a mate here at the zoo. We don't want any tortoise babies. But in the wild, they typically don't mind if other tortoises are near them. Again, they're not aggressive towards one another. If another one's sort of in their range, they might sort of brush it off. And when these guys sort of find their hidey holes, so they're gonna find holes in trees or abandoned burrows where they sort of want to hide out for a little bit. You might find actually a couple different animals in one of those holes at one time.
So Dory, age 6, is asking, do you have any good tortoise jokes?
Yeah, so I actually have 2. So the first is, why don't tortoises wear scarves?
Why?
And the reason for that is because they already have turtlenecks.
Oh, that's a good one.
And then what do you get when you cross a tortoise and a porcupine? You get a slowpoke.
Oh, because of the quills on the porcupine. Well, there you have it, Dory. There's a couple of good tortoise jokes for you. Sydney, age 11, is asking, do tortoises mate for life?
No, they'll kind of mate with whoever they find. So their typical breeding season is going to be in the wet season of the rainforest. So the rainforest doesn't really have 4 seasons like us. They either have a wet or a dry season. And the wet season in the rainforest is going to be sort of late spring and then the summertime. So from about May to into July or so. That's typically when they breed, but they can breed all year round. And when they lay eggs, they're going to lay between 2 and 7 eggs, but up to a max of 15 eggs at one time.
So she's moving a lot out here in the wild. Like, how far do they roam?
These guys can have a pretty big range of about 100 or so square acres. When they are moving, they're just going to be searching for food because they're eating those leafy greens and they don't have a lot of nutritional value, so they're just constantly on the move for food. So a single tortoise can move a couple hundred meters or yards in a single straight line, just looking for food. But once they fill up on a meal, they're going to essentially lay down and rest for a little bit.
Do they sleep? How do they sleep? Do they tuck their heads in?
Yeah, they'll kind of tuck their heads into their shell so that it gives them some protection. But they're not going to just do it in the middle of the forest. Again, they're going to find a nice tight crevice where they can kind of wedge themselves in to give themselves protection from jaguars if they want to show up and try and get them.
So Chloe is asking, has she had any babies?
She has not had any babies to my knowledge.
And how many eggs do they normally lay at a time?
Between 2 and 7, but up to 15 eggs.
We're going to move her back over here.
If you ever have a tortoise, you always want to use 2 hands.
Can you pick her back up just a sec? I think we cut out momentarily. Okay, so the way you're holding her is on either side.
Just because she is heavy. Red-footed tortoises are very common in the pet trade. A lot of people do have these tortoises as pets because they're very easy to take care of and they're very mild-mannered. A lot of people like that. And she's about average size. They grow to about 12 to 13 inches in length.
So is that a problem for these guys, the pet trade?
It is. It's actually causing their populations to become a lot more vulnerable. The IUCN hasn't been able to actually go out and evaluate the exact number of tortoises in the wild just because they're hard to spot. Because they do hide under leaf litter. When they're resting, they'll let leaf litter go on top of trees fall, so it's really hard to get an accurate count. But my guess is that based on the amount of tortoises that have been brought from South, a lot more vulnerable to extinction.
And good question for me, and I'm going to repeat that because I think I cut out. How much can they weigh?
I believe I've seen reports of a red-footed tortoise, a male, weighing upwards of 60 pounds. But
so she weighs about 16 pounds. 16 pounds. Mike age 50,
they don't
or do
they sort of so rather than sleeping in the wintertime, they'll sleep in the summertime if it's super, super hot. That's when they'll lower their metabolic range and sort of slow down their metabolism so they don't have to use as much energy. So they're going to do when it's really, really hot and really dry so they don't have to use all that energy. And they can sort of estivate for long periods of time.
All right. A big thank you to those of you that have donated. There is a donate button. I think I've missed one. All right, there we go. I think we're back. So Marianne is asking, when tortoises have babies, do they stay with their mom or do they go out on their own?
They do not stay with their young. These tortoises, once they lay their eggs, they're going to leave that clutch and they're going to go on and do their thing. And so those eggs are going to sit in the nest for about 5 months or so. And then they're going to hatch, stay in that nest for a couple of days, go out into the wild. So adult tortoises, their main predators are going to be jaguars just because they are very large. But those small tortoises, they're actually prey items to a lot of animals. So like falcons and coatis and opossums and tegus and things like that. Just because they are so tiny and they want to eat them. So a lot of tortoises unfortunately don't make it. And
I'm guessing the eggs are probably predated as well. Do they dig? Do they bury them?
Yeah, creating those nests.
All right, I think we cut out there, so I'm going to ask you to repeat that. So they do bury their eggs.
Right, they do bury their eggs and then they leave those eggs on their own.
Okay.
And they can have lay eggs for as long as they live.
And how long can they live?
In human care, up to over 50 years from what we know. But we're not told just because they are hard to
this way. So we're going to try and swing around this way and see if we can. So I'm just scrolling through to see if we've missed any questions. Like I said, thank you so much to those of you that have donated. Your donations go to our Zoological Society, which underwrite.
Those of us who just tuned in, again, this is Dottie. She is a red-footed rainforest of South America. So
all right. I know that this has been cutting in and out throughout this keeper chat, which is a little frustrating because it's a gorgeous day, but the Wi-Fi in the center of the zoo, my phone seems to be having difficulty with it. So thank you so much, guys, for bearing with us. I'm slowly trying to scroll through and make sure I haven't missed any questions that we may have missed from the beginning. Dottie is still on the move.
Yep, these guys will spend a lot of their days just looking for food. Again, because they're eating those leafy greens. But once they get their fill, they're going to sort of hunker down and let themselves digest.
And so does that matter what time of day? Do they sleep at night? Do they move at night at all?
But they also will sleep around midday or so, I guess, because it gets too hot, and they fill up on their somewhere to go under the table.
Yeah. She is continuing to move. All the questions that I can see, I may have missed a few. Actually, Kaiden is asking, do they lay their eggs on a beach?
They do not. So again, these animals they don't hang out on the beaches. Their habitats are going to be sort of on the forest edge. They're going to lay their eggs. They're going to use their back claws to dig a hole into the dirt, and then they're going to cover it with that dirt and some leaf litter.
All right, would you mind picking her up so I can get another close-up of her face? This seems like it's a good spot. All right, so here you can get a good look without moving. So my Wi-Fi, good look at her face and her coloring.
Yeah, so inside of her mouth, on each side, she's got between 15 and 20 sort of edges or teeth, so she can bite down on eat those crunchy foods.
And then her shell, and yeah, she certainly is cute, Patty. All right, I don't see any other questions. Again, I know this has been a challenging chat, and I'm out. All right, so before I cut out again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. And a big thank you to Sam and Dottie Tortoise. We miss our visitors. Hope to see you again soon. And we'll be back tomorrow at 11 o'clock for another chat, hopefully with better Wi-Fi. Thanks, folks.